Nobody expected it to end like this. A single moment that changed everything. Breaking. The Eila versus Vekic match in Berlin didn't end on the scoreboard. It ended in silence. Officials suspended play, fans froze, and nobody courtside could explain why. What happened in those final minutes has turned a routine quarterfinal into the most talked about 10 minutes of the tournament. And the more people look into it, the less it adds up. Stay until the end, because what really happened on that court is not what most people think.
I think just training like normal. Honestly, I did not have a lot of time to train on grass before I started in Birmingham. I probably had like a day or two. But yeah, I think I felt right at home and I really enjoyed last week. So I'm trying to keep that momentum going. It's incredible. I think I did not think that I would be able to experience that in my lifetime, to be on the tour while Serena is competing as well. And of course, she is the great and such an inspiration. So to be able to see that firsthand and experience the tour at the same time as her is something I'll remember for life. Even if maybe I don't get any interactions with her, it would still be an honor to just, be in that same space.
Berlin in early spring carries a particular kind of energy. The clay isn't quite clay. The indoor courts hum with quiet anticipation. And the WTA crowd that fills these stands has seen enough tennis to know when something feels different. This was supposed to be a routine quarterfinal, on paper at least. Eala had arrived in Berlin riding the kind of form that makes analysts sit up. 3 straight wins, each one tighter than the last, each one a small piece of evidence that she was no longer the promising newcomer. She was a threat. Her serve had tightened.
But she would go inside the world's top 100, which is such a massive landmark to get past. At the moment, she's 102 in the live rankings, would go to 75. That's a massive jump.
Yeah, and she's talked about how, she's not getting ahead of herself. She's trying to, as you mentioned, keep in that bubble. Clearly her family helping her do that, but she's relishing each step in the journey rather than, in her words, making each milestone a destination. She's process-driven.
They're going to check, but I'm not sure you can use this on court. Yeah, this one.
Those outcome-related goals.
Her movement, always elegant, had taken on a new aggression. She wasn't just competing anymore. She was hunting. Eila Vekic, on the other side of the draw, carried a different kind of weight. Vekic has spent years being described as experienced, a word that in tennis can feel like a compliment and a cage in the same breath. She knows what it's like to be the favorite who doesn't deliver, and she knows what it's like to claw back from those exact moments. Berlin was supposed to be one of those clawback chapters, a statement, a reminder that her ranking wasn't a relic. The two players had met only once before, a brief, forgettable encounter on an outer court 2 seasons ago that Vekic won in straight sets. Nobody remembered the score. Everybody remembered the look on Eala's face afterward, the look of someone filing something away for later. So when the draw paired them in Berlin, there was a quiet murmur through the locker room. Players talk, coaches talk more, and the word that kept surfacing in hushed hallway conversations was unfinished. The opening set gave nothing away. Eala broke early, Vekic broke back. The rallies were long, physical, the kind of tennis that exhausts a crowd just from watching it. Eala's forehand, usually her signature weapon, was finding lines with a precision that had Vekic's coaching box leaning forward, scribbling notes, recalculating. It happened at 3:04 walking back to the baseline. Commentators in the broadcast booth noted it only in passing. Vekic wants a word with the chair, it seems. Nothing more. The match continued. Eala held that game. The set tightened. And then, 3 games later, words were exchanged.
If you've ever watched a single ambiguous clip travel across social media, you already know what happened next. Within 20 minutes of the suspension being lifted, 3 different versions of what really happened were circulating, and none of them agreed with each other. One version, built almost entirely on lip-reading a blurry broadcast clip, claimed Vekic had accused the umpire of bias toward Eila. Another version, equally unverified, suggested the delay was about something unrelated to the call entirely, a coaching violation review that had nothing to do with the disputed point at all. A third version simply declared, with the confidence the internet reserves for things it cannot actually confirm, that Eila had demanded the review herself. None of these were officially confirmed. All of them spread anyway. This is the part of modern tennis that players, for all their preparation, can never fully train for. You can drill your serve 10,000 times. You cannot drill your name trending for reasons you don't control. Fan accounts split almost immediately into 2 camps, and the language hardened fast. Eila supporters pointed to her calm demeanor throughout the delay as proof she had nothing to do with provoking it. She just sat there. She didn't say a word. Why is she even part of this conversation? Vekic's supporters countered just as quickly, framing her approach to the umpire not as an outburst, but as accountability. She asked a fair question. Since when is questioning a call a crime? Both sides had a point. Neither side had the full picture. What made this spiral faster than a typical on-court dispute was timing. This wasn't an early round match buried on an outer court with 300 spectators. This was a quarterfinal, broadcast widely, in a tournament with enough prestige that highlight clips were already being cut for end-of-day recap shows before the match had even finished. The suspension didn't need to be explained to spread. It only needed to be filmed. By that evening, the hashtag pairing both players' names. The statement, when it finally came, satisfied almost nobody. Tournament officials released a brief notice, roughly 90 minutes after the match concluded, describing the suspension as a standard procedural review of officiating decisions, conducted in line with tournament protocol, and adding that both players were respectful and professional throughout. No mention of what was actually reviewed. No mention of the outcome of that review. No acknowledgement of why a procedural pause needed 6 minutes and 2 players sitting in visible discomfort in front of a packed stadium. Fans who had spent the afternoon constructing theories now had a new target. Not the players, but the opacity of the institution itself. How do you suspend a match for 6 minutes and not tell anyone why? One widely shared comment read. It captured something real. In an era where every gesture is filmed and every silence is filled with speculation, vague institutional language doesn't calm anything down. It pours gasoline on it. Pundits, for their part, Vekic had been mounting exactly the kind of gritty resistance her career has been built on. None of that made it into the conversation by evening. The match result, Eala would eventually close it out in 3 sets after play resumed, became a footnote to its own headline. For Eala, in an argument she didn't start. For Vekic, the backlash was sharper and more direct. Years of experienced but inconsistent narratives suddenly found new ammunition. Clips of her approaching the umpire were slowed down, captioned, recontextualized into something angrier than what most courtside observers actually described witnessing. The word meltdown began attaching itself to a moment that several reporters present that day described. If this story pulled you in, you'll want to be here for the next one. Because in this sport, the real drama rarely happens where the cameras are pointed. Subscribe and stay close. The next chapter is already forming.